The night was cold and silent in the mountain valley. The human named Evan was finishing his repairs on an old heating unit inside his small cabin. Wind howled outside, rattling the metal roof. He had lived alone for years, far from the cities, far from anyone who could hurt him again. But that night something unusual broke the silence. It started as a faint cry, soft, distant, yet filled with fear. At first, Evan thought it was just the wind. Then he heard it again, sharper this time, like a desperate voice. He froze. It wasn't an animal. It was something alive and afraid. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out into the storm. The icy wind bit at his face as he scanned the darkness. Snow fell hard, covering everything in a silver mist. Then, near the edge of the forest, he saw it. A small figure crawling through the snow, holding something close to her chest. "Hey, are you okay?" he shouted, running toward her. The figure looked up weakly. Even through the storm, Evan could see she wasn't human. Her skin had a faint blue shimmer, her eyes large and glowing faintly like amber light. In her trembling arms, she held a tiny baby wrapped in a tattered cloth. She tried to speak, her lips shaking. "Please, help," she whispered, voice breaking. They will find us." Before Evan could ask who they were, she collapsed in the snow, clutching the infant tightly. Evan's heart pounded. For a moment he just stared, half in shock, half in confusion. An alien mother and her child here at his door? The war had ended years ago. Most aliens avoided Earth. What could drive her here? He knelt beside her and checked her pulse, faint but steady. The baby, however, began to cry softly, a strange sound mixed with human tone and gentle hums. Its eyes opened, bright silver, glowing gently even in the dark. Something about that light made Evan's chest ache, as if the little one's pain reached straight into his soul. He didn't think twice. He lifted the mother and the child into his arms and carried them toward his cabin. Snow crunched under his boots as he hurried inside, shutting the door against the storm. Inside, the warmth from the heater wrapped around them. Evan laid the mother on his couch and placed the baby beside her. The infant reached for him with tiny glowing fingers. He hesitated, then let the baby touch his hand, and a soft wave of warmth passed through his skin, gentle but powerful. "What are you two running from?" he murmured quietly. He started tending to the mother's wounds, cuts on her arms, bruises on her shoulders. She looked exhausted, as if she had traveled for days without rest. When he cleaned her face, he noticed small scales near her neck, not hard but soft and faint, shimmering like stars. Hours passed. The storm outside grew louder, yet inside the cabin all he heard was the baby's quiet breathing. At dawn, the alien woman woke. Her eyes darted around, full of fear, until she saw Evan sitting nearby with a cup of warm tea in his hand. "You're safe," he said softly. "I found you outside. You both almost froze." The woman tried to speak, her voice weak. "You shouldn't have helped us," she whispered. They will come," Evan frowned. "Who will come?" She turned her head slightly toward the window. "Hunters, soldiers, they want her," she said, touching the baby's tiny head. "They want the child." Evan looked at the little one, who was now smiling softly at him, her silver eyes full of strange innocence. "Why your child? She is different," the mother said, tears glistening. "They fear what she could become." Evan didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing for sure. No one deserved to be hunted like this. He stood and looked out the frosted window. In the distance, beyond the trees, faint red lights blinked through the fog, moving lights, drones, searching. The woman saw them too. Her breath caught. "They found us." Evan turned to her, calm but firm. "Then we'll make sure they don't take her." He loaded his old rifle, one he hadn't touched in years. The storm had eased, but the danger had just begun. Outside, the faint sound of engines grew louder, cutting through the cold morning air. Evan stood by the door, ready, as the alien mother held her child close and whispered a trembling prayer. That night had changed everything. For her, for the baby, and for the human who had just opened his door to destiny. Morning light crept through the cracks of Evan's cabin walls, warming the cold air that lingered after the storm. The fire still burned low, and the alien mother, Lyra, sat near it, holding her baby close. Evan placed a mug of tea beside her, steam rising softly. She looked at it but didn't touch. Her golden eyes watched him carefully, unsure whether to trust this strange human who had risked himself to save her. Evan smiled gently, trying to break the heavy silence. "You should drink it," he said in a calm tone. It's not poison, just tea. Lyra hesitated, then took a slow sip. For a moment, her tense shoulders relaxed. The baby cooed softly, reaching for Evan with a small glowing hand. Evan couldn't help but smile. She likes light, he said softly. Or maybe she just likes me. Lyra's lips curved slightly, the first hint of a smile. Her name is Ari, she whispered. It means light of hope in my language. Ari, Evan repeated. That's beautiful. But her smile faded quickly, replaced by fear. You should not have helped us, human. If they know you sheltered me, they will destroy you too. Evan leaned back on his chair. I've already lost everything once, he said quietly. If I can help someone now, I will. She looked at him with confusion. Why? Because when my wife and daughter needed help, he said slowly, his eyes turning distant. No one came. Silence filled the cabin. Only the soft crackle of the fire broke it. Lyra looked down at the floor, guilt shadowing her expression. After a long pause, Evan spoke again. Tell me, Lyra, who's after you? Her hands tightened around the baby. The Zareth Empire, she said bitterly. They ruled my world for decades. When we refused to serve, they burned our villages. They killed the men and took the young. But I ran, Evan frowned. And the baby? Lyra hesitated. She was born with a mark. The priest said she carries something ancient, something powerful. The Empire wants it. They believe her blood can unlock their old weapons. Evan's eyes widened. A baby? They want to hurt a baby for that? Lyra nodded, tears forming. They will not stop. I ran for weeks through ruined towns and forests, hiding by day, walking by night. When I found this world, I thought maybe humans would show mercy. Evan sighed deeply. You came to the wrong planet for mercy, he said bitterly, then added softly, but maybe not to the wrong door. Lyra looked up at him, surprised by his words. Outside, the wind had grown still. But Evan's ears caught something else, a faint humming sound, low and steady, moving above the clouds. He walked to the window and peeked through the glass. A small dark shape crossed the sky. A drone. They're searching already, he said under his breath. Lyra stood quickly, clutching Ari close. Panic flashed in her eyes. If they find us, they won't, Evan interrupted. There's an old bunker under the workshop. It's hidden. He opened a trapdoor beneath the rug, revealing a ladder leading into darkness. Dust floated in the air as he pulled a switch. Weak yellow lights flickered below. Lyra looked down, hesitant. You built this? Used to keep supplies here during the last storm season, he replied. Now I guess it's for something more important. Lyra climbed down with Ari in her arms. The baby made soft humming sounds as they descended, her little glow lighting the path. Evan followed, sealing the trap door above them. The bunker smelled of old metal and oil, but it was warm enough. Evan turned on a small generator and lights filled the space. Lyra sat on a crate, still holding her baby tightly. You're risking your life, she whispered. Evan shrugged. Life's only worth something if you use it to protect others. Ari reached out to him again, her silver eyes shining brighter now. When her tiny fingers touched his hand, the light pulsed softly through the room. Evan stared, amazed. She's glowing brighter. Lyra's eyes widened too. She reacts to emotion, she said quietly. When she feels peace, she glows. When she feels fear, she hides her light. Evan smiled gently. Then she must feel safe here. But before Lyra could answer, a sudden vibration shook the ground above them. The faint hum of engines turned into a roar. They found the signal, Lyra whispered in terror. They're here. Evan rushed up the ladder, opened the trapdoor just enough to look outside. He saw shadows moving near the trees, tall, armored figures scanning the snow with red lights. He shut the door silently and turned to Lyra. Stay quiet. Don't make a sound. She nodded, hugging her baby close. Evan picked up his old rifle and stood beside the ladder, every muscle tense. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed closer. The faint metallic voice of a soldier broke through the air. Scan the perimeter. She couldn't have gone far. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering, Please, not now. Evan took a deep breath and muttered, They want her? They'll have to go through me first. The soldier's boots crunched over the snow. The sound of a weapon charging echoed faintly, and then a sudden explosion tore through the silence. The hunt had begun. The explosion echoed through the frozen forest like thunder. Evan's cabin trembled as snow slid from the roof and scattered across the ground. He rushed to the small window, his heart pounding fast. Flames flickered faintly in the distance. His welding shed was burning. It wasn't an accident. Through the smoke, shadows appeared. Tall, armored figures in black suits, their helmets glowing with red visors. Zerath soldiers. They moved in perfect formation, scanning every inch of snow. One of them pointed a scanner toward the cabin. "They're close," Evan muttered. Down below, Lyra rocked Ari in her arms, trying to keep her quiet. The baby's light dimmed, her small body sensing danger. Lyra's heart raced. Every sound from above felt like a hammer in her chest. Evan loaded his old rifle. It wasn't built for alien armor, but it was all he had. He checked the trapdoor once more, locked tight, then crept toward the window. Outside, the soldiers approached his cabin. One raised a metal hand and shouted, "Scan complete!" "Life signs detected." Evan froze. He had to think fast. He grabbed a wrench from his workbench and struck the old fuel tank beside the door. It hissed as vapor leaked out. He picked up a burning stick from the fire, tossed it toward the tank, and dove for cover. Boom! The explosion was massive. Fire and smoke burst into the night, throwing soldiers backward. For a few seconds, chaos ruled. The drones above spun wildly from the shockwave, crashing into the snow. Evan used that moment. He rushed outside, firing a few shots into the air, not to hit anyone, but to draw attention. "There," one soldier yelled. "The human has her. Capture him alive!" Evan ran toward the tree line, boots kicking up snow. He could feel the burning heat behind him and hear metal footsteps closing in. But every step he took was meant to lead them away from the cabin, away from Lyra. Inside the bunker, Lyra held her breath, listening to the muffled chaos above. She wanted to go after him, but she knew if she moved now, she'd doom them all. She kissed Ari's forehead and whispered, "He's buying us time, my light. We must trust him." Evan dove behind a fallen log, panting hard. He peeked over it and saw the soldiers spread out, moving like hunters. One of them was scanning his footprints. The other held a plasma rifle ready to fire. "Human," the soldier shouted, voice cold and metallic. "You are protecting an enemy of the Empire. Hand her over and we will spare you." Evan yelled back, "You'll have to kill me first." A red beam flashed past his head, burning a tree trunk. He ducked and rolled, firing his rifle in return. The bullets bounced off armor but slowed them down. Then from above he heard the sharp whine of drones. They were circling back toward the cabin. "No," he whispered, panic rising. "They're going back for her." He sprinted through the snow, ignoring the pain in his legs. As he reached the clearing, 2 drones hovered above the cabin, scanning the roof. Evan grabbed a metal pipe and threw it at one of them. Sparks flew and the drone crashed into the snow. The other one turned toward him, targeting. Its red beam locked onto his chest. Before it could fire, a strange sound filled the air. A soft, humming pulse. The drone froze mid-air. Then its light flickered and died. Evan looked around, confused. Then he saw a faint silver glow coming from under the snow-covered floorboards of his cabin, from the bunker below. Ari. Even hidden underground, the baby's strange power had reached out and stopped the drone systems. Evan didn't know how or why, but he wasn't about to waste the chance. He grabbed his rifle, aimed at the stunned soldier nearby, and fired. The shot hit the weak joint under its arm. The alien screamed and fell. The others began retreating, dragging their fallen comrade away. "We'll return," one shouted. "No one hides the marked child." Evan didn't answer. He just stood there, breathing hard, watching them disappear into the fog. When he finally lifted the trap door, Lyra looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. "You're hurt," she whispered, seeing blood on his sleeve. "Just a scratch," he said, forcing a tired smile. "They're gone, for now." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "You risked your life for us, why?" Evan sat beside her, his voice quiet. "Because you were right. If I didn't help you, I'd be no better than the ones who turned their backs on my family." Ari, still glowing softly, reached toward Evan again. Her tiny hand touched his chest where the wound was, and suddenly warmth spread through his body. The pain eased. The bleeding slowed, Lyra gasped. "She healed you." Evan looked down at the baby, amazed. "Guess your little light really is something special." Outside, the fire was dying, but the sky above glowed red from the wreckage. The war might have forgotten Evan, but it had just found him again. And deep in the night, somewhere beyond the clouds, The Zerath Empire received a new signal. The coordinates of one small human cabin. The hunt was far from over. Snow blanketed the forest once again, hiding the burned marks left from the fight. Evan's cabin stood half broken but still standing, smoke curling from its cracked chimney. Inside, the air was calm, too calm, as if the world itself was holding its breath after what happened last night. Evan sat near the fire, his arm bandaged. He stared quietly at the baby resting in a small basket. The glow around her pulsed gently like a heartbeat of light. Lyra sat beside him, her silver-blue skin now pale from exhaustion. "You should rest," Evan said softly. "You were up all night." Lyra shook her head. "I can't. They will come again. You saw what happened. They won't stop until they have her." Evan leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "Yeah, I saw. But you also saw what your baby did." She shut down their drone. "How did she do that?" Lyra's eyes lowered. "I don't fully know," she admitted. "Before the Empire came, the elders said a prophecy, that one child would carry the harmony pulse, a power that connects all living things. They said it could end wars, or start one." Evan glanced at the baby, Ari, whose eyes opened slightly, reflecting the firelight. "And you believe that's her?" Lyra nodded. "The Zerath Empire believes it too. They want to twist her gift into a weapon." Evan let out a slow breath. "So your daughter might be the key to peace, and they want her for destruction. Typical." He stood and walked toward the window. The forest was quiet, but he knew silence meant little. Somewhere out there, scanners and patrols were still searching. He had to do something. "I've got an old transport ship buried out back," he said suddenly. "Used it years ago for mining runs. If I fix it, we could fly out of here. There's a station past the mountain ridge, a safe zone where the Empire's reach is weak." Lyra looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "You would take us there?" Evan shrugged. "I didn't come this far to stop now." He grabbed his tools and stepped outside. The air was sharp and cold, but the snow had softened. He found the old metal hatch half buried behind his workshop, covered in frost. When he opened it, the familiar smell of oil and rust hit him. His old ship, the Mariner's Hope, sat there, silent like a forgotten dream. For hours he worked, tightening bolts, checking circuits, repairing broken panels. Lyra came outside with Ari wrapped in a blanket, watching him quietly. "Your hands," she said softly. "You fix things like you're healing them." Evan smiled faintly. "Machines are easier than people. They don't lie or break promises." Lyra tilted her head. "But you still choose to help us," he paused, meeting her gaze. "Because maybe helping you fixes something inside me too." For a long moment neither spoke. Only the sound of wind and metal filled the air. Then suddenly Ari began to hum. Not cry, not coo, but hum. A soft melodic sound that vibrated through the ground. Evan turned. "Is she singing?" Lyra's eyes widened. "No, she's remembering." The baby's glow brightened, and symbols of light started appearing in the air around her. Stars, circles, and a map forming above them. The projection hovered, spinning slowly. Evan stepped closer. "That's a star chart." Lyra stared in awe. "Those are ancient sectors, lost routes from before the war. Only the first settlers knew them." Evan traced the glowing pattern with his finger. One of the coordinates pulsed brighter than the others, a place labeled in old symbols. "What's that spot?" he asked. Lyra whispered, "Sanctum, the home of the ancients. It's said to be hidden, unreachable, maybe. She's showing us the way." Evan looked at her with disbelief and wonder. "Your daughter might be guiding us to the one place even the Empire can't touch." Lyra clutched Ari close, her voice trembling. "Then we must go, before they return." As if the universe had heard her, a distant rumble rolled across the forest. Evan stiffened. The hum of engines, faint but unmistakable, echoed from the sky. He glanced upward, his face tightening. "They're scanning again. We don't have much time." He rushed back to the ship, flipping switches, starting the power cores. Blue light surged through the circuits, flickering back to life after years of silence. Lyra climbed aboard with Ari, looking around the small cabin filled with old human tools and dusty seats. "It feels strange," she murmured, "but safe," Evan smirked. "Then let's make it fly." But before the engines could fully power up, a red beam shot from the tree line, striking the hull. The ground shook. Alarm screamed. Evan cursed under his breath. They found us again. Through the window he saw shapes moving. More soldiers, dozens of them, advancing through the snow. He turned to Lyra. Get the baby strapped in. Don't move until I say. Lyra held Ari close, whispering, Light of hope, stay strong. Evan gripped his weapon and ran toward the hatch. Snow whirled around him as he faced the oncoming storm of red lights and metallic footsteps. He didn't know if they could make it off this planet, but he knew one thing. He'd die before letting them take that child. The stars above seemed to flicker brighter, as if watching what would happen next, and down below, Ari's light glowed stronger than ever. The forest no longer looked peaceful. Smoke curled above the snow, and red light swept between the trees as the Zerath Empire's soldiers spread out like shadows of death. Evan's cabin and his half-fixed ship stood surrounded by danger. Inside the ship, Lyra held little Ari close to her chest. The baby's soft glow flickered nervously, reacting to her mother's heartbeat. Lyra whispered, Hush, my light. We will make it through this. But her trembling hands betrayed her fear. Evan climbed aboard, his face streaked with sweat and soot. They're closing in, he said sharply. 3 squads at least. Drones in the air. We can't stay here. Lyra looked at him, her eyes desperate. Then we run. Evan shook his head. Engines aren't ready yet. The stabilizers are still dead. If we launch now, we'll crash before we clear the ridge. Lyra bit her lip. Then what do we do? Evan thought fast. He moved to the control panel, rerouting power lines and pulling wires together. Sparks flew. We hold them off, he muttered. Buy enough time to charge the core. He grabbed his rifle and opened the hatch slightly. The cold air burst inside, carrying the sound of marching boots. He saw them. Armored shapes fanning out through the trees, weapons glowing blue. They're using energy rifles, he muttered. 1 hit and this ship's toast. Lyra touched his arm. You can't face them alone. Evan looked back at her, his voice calm but firm. I've faced worse. I was a soldier once. Before she could answer, a voice boomed from the trees, metallic, deep, and full of authority. Human, hand over the alien woman and her offspring. You are interfering with Zerath military law. Surrender now and live, Evan smirked. You'll have to earn your paycheck first. He fired a shot. The bullet hit the side of a tree near the soldiers, sending snow flying. Instantly, they returned fire. Blue plasma bolts tore through the forest, burning the ground. Evan ducked behind a rock, reloading fast. His mind raced, and he couldn't win this fight, but he could slow them down. He pulled a small explosive from his belt, one of his old mining charges. He twisted the dial, set it for 10 seconds, and threw it toward the nearest squad. Boom! The explosion shook the ground, snow and dirt flying into the air. 2 soldiers fell, their armor cracked. The others scattered, shouting orders. Inside the ship, Ari began to cry, her light flashing wildly. The ship's sensors flickered, reacting to her power. The control screens glowed brighter, systems waking up faster than Evan expected. Lyra gasped. She's helping. The ship. Evan looked back, seeing the engine lights flare to life. Keep her calm, he yelled over the noise. If she keeps doing that, we might just have a chance. He ran toward the entrance ramp, firing again at the soldiers pushing through the smoke. 1 shot grazed his shoulder, but he didn't stop. Come on, he muttered to the ship. Just a little more time. Lyra, trembling, placed Ari near the control panel. The baby reached out, touching the metal. Energy pulsed through the entire system, like light flowing through veins. The ship's engines roared to life, shaking the ground beneath them. Evan sprinted back inside and slammed the hatch shut. Hold on tight, he shouted. The ship lifted a few feet off the ground, unstable, groaning, but moving. Outside, soldiers fired wildly, bolts hitting the hull and bouncing off. 1 struck the side hard enough to tilt the ship. Come on, Evan yelled, wrestling the controls. You can do it. Lyra gripped the chair, holding Ari tightly. Evan, they're aiming for the core. He saw it too. A heavy plasma cannon being set up by the lead soldier. Its barrel began to glow. Evan slammed his hand on the emergency switch. Hang on. He redirected all power to the thrusters. The ship screamed, the engines flaring bright blue, and then a blast of energy hit the ground just as the Mariner's hope shot upward. The cannon's beam missed by inches, tearing a crater in the snow where the ship had been. The force threw everyone inside against the seats. Lyra cried out, clutching Ari as the ship broke through the smoke and into the clouds. Below them, the forest burned red and orange, soldiers shouting in anger as their prey escaped into the sky. Evan's hands shook as he stabilized the ship. "We're clear," he said through heavy breaths. "For now." Lyra turned to him, her eyes wet with tears. "You saved us again," he smiled weakly. "No, she saved us." He looked at the baby, now quiet in her mother's arms, her glow steady and soft. Lyra followed his gaze, whispering, "She's stronger than I ever knew." Evan leaned back, staring out at the stars breaking through the clouds. "Then we'd better find out how strong soon," he said quietly, "because the Empire won't stop. Not until she's theirs. Or they're destroyed trying." Outside, the mariner's hope flew into the endless night, leaving behind the burning forest, and an army that now swore vengeance. Far behind them, the commander of the Zereth troops spoke into his comlink. "They're heading toward the northern ridge. Alert the fleet, the hunt isn't over." And above the stars, the real chase had just begun. The mariner's hope tore through the upper clouds like a wounded bird, engines screaming as blue flames trailed behind it. Inside the cockpit, alarms flashed red across the control panels. Evan gritted his teeth, fighting the shaking controls as the ship spun slightly. "Stabilizer 3's gone," he shouted. "We've taken too much fire." Lyra clutched little Aerie tightly against her chest. "We can't fall now. Not when we're so close." "I'm trying." Evan barked, twisting a lever and slamming a switch. Sparks jumped from the console. "If I can reroute power to the secondary thrusters, maybe." Suddenly, a loud beeping filled the cockpit. On the radar screen, glowing red dots began appearing, 1, 2, then dozens. Lyra's breath caught. "They're following us." Evan's face went pale. "Zereth interceptors. They've launched fighters." Outside, sleek black ships appeared like sharks slicing through clouds, leaving vapor trails that glowed crimson. Their engines howled and plasma bolts streaked past the mariner's hope. Evan jerked the ship left. "Hold on." The small freighter dove into a canyon of clouds, weaving between mountain peaks capped with ice. Plasma fire burst around them, lighting up the sky. Aerie whimpered in Lyra's arms, her light flickering unevenly. Lyra whispered, "It's okay, little one. Please be calm." But the baby's light pulsed brighter and then spread. A faint silver aura filled the cabin, surrounding them like a shield. The next plasma bolt struck and then bounced off harmlessly, scattering into blue sparks. Evan blinked in disbelief. "What in the stars?" Lyra stared at her daughter, tears in her eyes. "She's protecting us. She's learning." Evan smiled faintly despite the chaos. "Guess our co-pilot's stronger than we thought." Still, the ship rattled violently. "We can't outrun them forever," he said, flipping through manual controls. "We need cover." Lyra pointed ahead through the viewport. "There, the storm belt." In the distance, massive black clouds churned, glowing with bursts of lightning, a deadly storm zone. No pilot dared enter it, but to Evan it looked like salvation. He tightened his grip on the controls. Storm it is. The interceptors fired again, closing the distance. The ship's hull screamed as energy bolts tore across the sides. "Brace!" Evan yelled. The mariner's hope plunged into the storm. Instantly, thunder roared and lightning danced across the hull. Turbulence slammed them side to side. The cockpit lights flickered, and for a moment everything went black. Lyra cried out, holding Aerie close as the baby's glow became the only light in the darkness. Evan's hand stayed steady on the controls. "Come on, girl," he muttered to the ship. "You've flown through worse." Outside, the pursuing fighters began to struggle. One by one, lightning struck them, frying circuits, tearing wings apart. 2 ships exploded in blinding flashes, swallowed by the storm. The rest broke off pursuit. "We lost them," Evan said through heavy breaths. "But if we stay in this storm too long, we'll be next." Lyra pointed to a blinking marker on the star map, projected by Ari's light. "That way. There's a cave in the northern ridge, an old mining tunnel. We can hide there." Evan nodded and adjusted the controls. The ship dove lower, lightning flashing all around them. Finally, through the rain and static, a dark hole appeared in the mountain face. "Hold on tight," he said again. "This'll be rough." The mariner's hope roared into the cavern, scraping stone and showering sparks before sliding to a stop in the darkness. The engine sputtered, then fell silent. For a moment, there was nothing but the echo of their breaths and the dripping of melted snow. Lyra looked at him, trembling but alive. "We made it," Evan smiled weakly. "Barely." He stood and walked to the back, checking the damage. The hull was cracked, panels scorched. We'll need at least a day to fix her, he said. But we're safe for now. Lyra placed Ari in his arms gently. She wants you, she said softly. Evan froze as the baby looked up at him with silver eyes. Her glow softened and he felt something deep in his chest. Calm, warmth, and peace all at once. She's something else, he murmured. Lyra nodded. She chose you, Evan. You are part of her now. He looked at her confused. Part of her? She connects through hearts, Lyra said. When you saved us, she felt your truth. Now your light and hers are linked. Evan looked down at the little one, amazed. So that's what the soldiers fear, he said quietly. Not her power, her connection. Outside, thunder faded slowly and stars began to appear through cracks in the cavern ceiling. Evan sat beside Lyra, watching the light play across the baby's small face. But their peace didn't last long. The ship's sensors beeped faintly. Evan leaned forward and checked the screen. A faint red signal blinked in the corner. One ship still tracking them. He clenched his jaw. We didn't lose all of them. Someone followed us. Lyra's hand tightened on his arm. Then it ends here. Evan's eyes met hers. Calm, determined. Not yet. We'll make our stand, but not for revenge. For her. Lyra looked at Ari, whose soft light reflected in her mother's eyes. For the light of hope. Outside in the distance, a single dark ship sliced through the clouds. The Empire's elite hunter closing in for the final encounter. The true escape had just begun. The mountain cave was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, snow whispered against the rocks, while inside, the damaged ship hummed weakly. Faint lights blinked across the control panel like a dying heartbeat. Evan sat near the entrance, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the mouth of the cave where darkness hid the sky. Lyra sat behind him, holding Ari close. The baby slept peacefully, her tiny glow dim but steady. It was the calm before the storm, and Evan knew it. He could feel it in the air, the same way he used to before a battlefield erupted. A strange stillness, a pause before something unstoppable arrived. Evan, Lyra whispered, you haven't rested since we landed. He didn't turn. Can't rest now. One ship followed us. I saw the tracking signal. It's only a matter of time. Lyra stood, walking slowly to his side. You've done enough. You've risked everything for us. Evan shook his head. No, not enough. I promised I'd get you both to safety. That's not done yet. Before Lyra could reply, a faint sound echoed through the cave. A low metallic hum. Evan froze. It grew louder, sharper. Light spilled across the rocks. They found us, he said quietly. A dark shape appeared at the cave's mouth. A sleek black ship, smaller than a cruiser, but armed with deadly precision. Its engines died down, and a single figure stepped out, tall and cloaked in armor that shimmered with silver edges. The helmet retracted, revealing the hard, scarred face of a Zerath commander. His red eyes glowed faintly as he stepped forward, his voice calm and cold. You've caused quite the chase, human, he said. You should be honored. Few last this long. Evan raised his rifle but didn't fire. You've come a long way for a mother and her child. The commander smirked. You know nothing of what you protect. That creature is not your child. She is a weapon. One that could destroy entire fleets if awakened. Lyra stepped forward, standing between them, her voice trembling but fierce. You call her a weapon, but she was born to heal, to unite. You're just afraid of peace, the commander laughed. Peace, the strong rule. The weak follow. That is the law of the stars. Evan took a step closer. Maybe on your world, not on mine. The commander's smirk faded. Then die with your foolish honor. He lifted his plasma blade, a glowing red edge that hummed like thunder. Evan fired first, the rifle cracking through the silence. The shot struck the commander's armor but barely dented it. In seconds, the alien lunged forward, striking with inhuman speed. Evan dodged, rolling to the side. The blade sliced a burning line into the rock. He swung his rifle like a club, slamming it into the alien's face. Sparks flew, and the commander staggered back, growling. Lyra clutched Ari tightly, whispering in fear. Evan! Stay back! He shouted, blocking another strike. The commander roared and swung again, sparks flying as his blade hit metal. Evan stumbled but grabbed a piece of broken pipe from the floor and struck the alien's knee. The commander grunted, dropping to one side. Evan raised the pipe again, ready to strike. But the alien's hand shot out, grabbing his throat. You fight well for a primitive, the commander hissed. But your courage will mean nothing. Ari suddenly cried out, a high, pure sound that filled the cave. Her glow burst outward, flooding the darkness with silver light. The commander froze, his eyes widening in shock as his armor began to crack under the radiant energy. Lyra shouted, Ari, no, you'll burn yourself. But the baby's light only grew stronger. The glow reached Evan too, washing over his bruises, his burns, his exhaustion. The pain faded. His strength returned. The commander screamed, dropping his weapon as his body trembled under the light. What is this power? Evan stood tall, gripping his rifle tightly. Hope, he said quietly. Something you'll never understand. He swung once and the rifle butt connected with the alien's head. The commander fell hard to the ground, unconscious, his armor smoking. Silence filled the cave again. The storm outside had stopped. Only the soft hum of the baby's light remained. Lyra rushed to Evan, tears shining in her eyes. You did it. We're safe. Evan breathed heavily, looking at Ari's glow fading gently back to normal. No, he said softly. She did it, Lyra smiled through tears. She is her own light. But you gave her the strength to shine. They dragged the unconscious commander's body outside, leaving it in the snow. Evan looked up at the sky, now clear and full of stars. So, he said, turning to Lyra, what now? Lyra looked at the stars too. The map she showed us, the sanctum. It's real. A world untouched by war. We can go there, raise her in peace, Evan nodded. A new home. They returned to the ship. The engines groaned to life again, repaired enough for one last journey. Evan sat in the pilot's seat, Lyra beside him, Ari in her arms. As the mariner's hope lifted off, the baby giggled softly. Her light shimmered across the cabin, painting their faces in warmth. Evan smiled faintly. She's happy, Lyra nodded. She feels safe. For the first time, the ship broke through the clouds, rising toward the endless stars. Behind them, the frozen world grew smaller, a memory of fear, farce and survival. Ahead, a bright star glowed on the horizon, the one Ari had shown them. Lyra whispered, Sanctum awaits. Evan glanced at the child's soft glow and murmured, Then let's give her the home she deserves. As the mariner's hope disappeared into the stars, the universe grew just a little brighter, lit by a human's courage, a mother's love, and a child's pure light. A family, forged not by blood but by hope.